Hi guys, Paul here from Meldrum Performance Coaching and the Complete Personal Trainer podcast. This is the third and final episode on my journey in understanding and disseminating information. To recap the first two episodes, in the first one I talked about where I used to go, mainly mentors and gurus, and I talked about the positives and negatives of that. In part two, we talked about evidence-based info, so the evidence-based hierarchy so we can analyze where we're getting our information from, and then also some of the cognitive biases that a lot of us, including myself, fall prey to when looking at analyzing new information and how we look at it. So in part three, I'm going to talk about what I do now and some of the ways that some things that you can apply so you have a better understanding of information and a better ability to critically analyze uh, things that you read, things that you watch on social media or YouTube or whatever, and how you can be a little bit better for it. So the first thing that I can say is that one of the things that happens when you follow gurus for evidence and you become kind of like a believer, a cult follower type thing, is you become incredibly arrogant because you're privy to information that others don't have. So I remember never really fitting in with the Czech practitioner world so much because I didn't take it as seriously as everyone else. I didn't pray over the food and meditate and do my qigong and all that other stuff, and I was a bit more cool. I like going to concerts and listening to heavy metal and throwing myself around and being a bit of an idiot. So I never took it that seriously, and I took the information and the coaching incredibly seriously, but not the more holistic aspect of it. And what happened was I actually kind of got shunned by a lot of people there, and I wasn't looked at on their level. In fact, when I won the Personal Trainer of the Year award, I got criticized immensely before I won the award, and I was told there was no chance I was going to win it in not so nice words because I wasn't serious about the Czech thing. Um, so that was fun, but basically there's an arrogance there when you're part of that cult guru mentality because you know something that others don't know. The same thing happened in a lot of the courses I did. It was kind of like we know more than what other people know, which is shit. It's a shitty attitude to have. So humility, having an open mind, is one of the most important qualities to have when understanding and disseminating new information because we really don't know it all. A guru only knows a fraction of what is actually true, and a lot of it is just stuff that they've made up to suit their own, their own cognitive biases, their own belief systems, and support themselves, their confirmation bias. So the first thing was recognizing that you need to be humble and have a healthy degree of humility to do that. From there, you need to recognize that you don't know what you don't know. And we've seen this so much with COVID-19. Personal trainers advising people on vaccines, like, kill me. Like, really, that's such a joke. We see personal trainers becoming psychologists. No, you're not a psychologist, you're a personal trainer. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a fantastic career choice. It's what I've dedicated my life to. It's a really important thing to do. Personal training is important. So we need to stick to that. We need to basically not jump out of our lane, if that makes sense. We need to jump out of our lane to an extent because we need to be versed in these areas, but we don't need to jump out of our lane and say that, hey, yes, guess what? I know more about the hormonal system than your endocrinologist, which is absolutely ludicrous on so many levels. One of the biosignature course things was that people were walking around giving hormonal advice and saying endocrinologists don't know this information. If endocrinologists don't know this information, it means that this information sucks. So that's having that humility and realizing that you don't know what you don't know and realizing that things are a lot more complex is probably the most important thing. So it's actually more of a personality, a mindset type approach. Having a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset is much more important for understanding and disseminating information. The next thing is to actually read both sides of the tale. So, and to go into that with a degree of compassion and wanting to listen to people and understand them first before you make a judgment against it. And a really good example was that Dr. Mike Isotel versus Joel Seedman debate. And Mike expressed it really well by saying, I didn't go in that debate to be an arsehole to him and tear him apart. No one enjoys that. It's not fun to, it's fun to watch, but it doesn't actually get anyone anywhere. So he went into that debate not ready to tear him apart or anything like that, but to ask questions to get a greater understanding of that person's viewpoint. So when we look at information and we go, all right, cool, training. I think I've been a real fan of tempo, for example. Let's just use that as a. I'm not a huge fan of tempo. I think, talking about our last podcast, it has application, but it's not going to change my life. I don't think it's as important to say volume, for example. Tempo. All right, cool. I'm really into tempo. I think it's amazing. All right, cool. Where does it say tempo is not as important? Okay, let's look at that. Let's type in tempo research and actually go through and find some research reviews and find some higher degree on the critical evidence scale examples of research on tempo and actually read it and try and understand it. And from there, what you do with that is you try and reconcile, what I try and do is I try and reconcile the two viewpoints. So by doing that, what it does, it allows you to actually come to your own conclusion, but you get to draw from both sides of the evidence. So if someone says insulin, for example, is the main leader of fat gain, which it isn't, Gary Torbs does that, Jason Fung, a bunch of other people, back in the day, I would agree with that, because that was, calories don't matter. That was the kind of mindset I had. Then I learned about evidence and all that other kind of, the evidence hierarchy. I then went bang into the calories camp. Cool, they've probably still got something of value to say. So let's have a look at it. And the worst possible thing that can come from that is you get some better questions, you learn a little bit of someone else's perspective, and you actually learn something that can reinforce your belief in what you believe to be correct. So for example, if I read some of that insulin stuff, I'll read some of their claims, and now I'll ask questions that are better orientated to that person's belief system to maybe shift them towards something that is a little bit more useful. So I know that sounds a bit awkward. Someone believes something really strongly in, say, nutrition, right? They believe that carbs after 6 will make them fat. All right, cool. With that, we know that's not true, because calories in versus calorie out is the most important thing. Your body doesn't know when it's carb time or not. It is more sensitive to carbs after a training session. Fantastic. That's great for performance. But carbs don't automatically go from having 4 calories per gram to 100 calories a gram after 6 p.m. It's just not really true. But by understanding where people are coming from and then asking questions around that, you can actually give a much better answer, a much better question as a coach. And that's going to help lead to a better degree of change talk, which is going to get your clients better results, or your students, or the people who are arguing for that. It's going to help gently encourage them to change their minds and perspective, rather than banging them over the head and saying, you're wrong, I have information that you don't have, which is the guru mentality. So guys, hopefully you found this series a little bit interesting. It's a little bit different to what I normally talk about. I think it's one of the most important skills that you can develop as a trainer and a coach, the ability to break down, understand, disseminate, and teach information to your clients, to your students, to whoever you work with, and the ability to then analyze both sides of the story, and then to understand where people are coming from. It will help make you more humble. It will help more develop humility. You realize that the more you know, the less you know, and you'll be able to ask better questions and have better communication, which is going to lead to better change talk. Hopefully you enjoyed it, guys. Thanks heaps, and I'll speak to you next week.